Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run for the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as it is going to remain fairly cold as we head into the upcoming weekend. High pressure is going to topple in and bring some briefly milder air for a time, but by Sunday into Monday we could be seeing easterly winds arriving, especially for eastern and southern areas. We could see some pretty cold air heading our way. Now, of course, we are in spring, so it's not going to be anything too incredible, but for the time of year, it could be around 6 to 8 degrees below average. The wind chill could make it feel like we're in December again, and we are likely to see some hefty showers around as well, coming in off the North Sea. As we enter the longer range, the rest of April remarkably looks like it's going to be below average, pretty cold. As said, temperatures a lot of the time are going to be a good 5+ degrees below average. Huge flip compared to what we've seen so far this year, where generally it's been above average. Yes, with colder blips, but nothing more sustained than maybe a few days or a week at most. This sort of pattern looks likely to continue for the next few weeks, having already started last week. So yeah, it's going to be really quite chilly remaining part of April due to some blocking to our north. And we are going to see repeated pulses of cool or even cold air in the coming week to 10 days. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, you can see again some quite hefty convection going on today, a bit more widespread and intense than the models have made it out to be. Again, that's something that has reoccurred over the past few days, so we are going to take that into account when having a look at the UKV in a minute, because it did show showers for today, but more isolated showers than anything too hefty. But as you see from the live radar, especially for parts of the Midlands into East Anglia, heading into South East England, we are seeing these lines of pretty hefty showers as we see a small area of low pressure moving down the east coast. Now, of course, they are mainly convection based, caused by the strong sunshine, the cold upper air temperatures. With that sun warming the surface, it does create this quite big temperature contrast between the surface and higher up in the atmosphere. And that's where we do see convection taking place. Typical April showers, that's what it's kind of colloquially known as. And we're seeing that, as I said, continue today. So they should fade away through this evening as the sun does set, but still could be a bit of hefty rain around for the next couple of hours in a few places. You can see this sort of April showers pattern happening all across Europe, really, as we do see this much colder air mass moving in for all, and it's all the way down to southeast Europe now, this cold polar maritime air mass with snow falling across parts of the Alps and even some moderate hills and mountains across much of Europe. So real quite big cold blast. And if we do put on the surface temperatures, you can see how chilly it has been today. If we look, you can see for much of the UK, lots of blues around, some yellows where we see some sunshine. We see the showers are across the East Midlands and East Anglia. Temperatures held really quite chilly, high single digits at best. And you see this continues across much of Europe, and you can see where the cold front is stretched down towards the Black Sea, just about holding on into southeast Europe and stretching all the way through Ukraine there, and you can see for most North and Western Europe it's chilly. Now, if you go 100 miles south of France, you're getting into parts of Spain where it's actually really warm, just about hanging on to the warm air. But you can see where this big cold pool has pushed southwards and eastwards over the past few days, and it's going to persist in the UK for the next few days, perhaps getting even stronger once again next week. Now, if you do look at the latest UKV, unfortunately, the 3 p.m. run hasn't fully come out yet, so we'll have to look at the 3 a.m. run, but we're just missing the last 12 hours, which, to be honest, is still probably, well, it's of course the most uncertain part of the time frame. Of course, we're focusing on the next few days when looking at in detail. And you can see through this evening that we still have those showers on the UKV, but they're nowhere near as organised and as hefty as we are seeing in reality. So again, we'll take that into account over the next few days. As we head into Thursday, again, we could see a few isolated showers through the early hours across the southeast, but really nothing too major. And then we see a bit of a weather front moving in for northern areas. Generally, though, just some thicker cloud and some outbreaks of rain. And this, again, is just a slight shift in the upper air temperatures, as we are going to see a little bit of a bump in the next few days before it turns cold once again towards the second half of the weekend. Now, as we head into Friday, that weather front moves away. We're back into a fresher air mass with a few showers around again. But we have to keep an eye on that because, of course, this is almost similar to what we're seeing today in terms of intensity across East Anglia there. And you can see, in reality, it is quite a bit more extensive. As we head into Saturday, we do see, again, some thicker cloud moving in, but actually a pretty dry day. And this is because the high pressure has now toppled on top of us. And as you'll be able to see in a minute, that we actually have some slightly milder upper air temperatures moving in, but eventually we do start to get easterly winds. You can see that precipitation out in the North Sea starts to come back towards us. We start to see showers and areas of rain in the southeast corner, and this is this cold, dry air mass starting to move in by the early hours of Monday. A proper easterly wind, of course, being towards the end of April, it can't be that cold, but it is going to feel really quite chilly out there with this wind coming in. Now you can see the milder air mass topples in through Saturday, briefly milder in the north and the west, actually very mild in terms of absolute upper air temperatures, but we're unlikely to see the fruition at the surface because once this air mass moves in, it gets pushed away once again by this cold pool of air coming in from the east. It's all because this is under a big area of high pressure, and that high pressure slips back out into the Atlantic and pushing northwards and allowing an easterly flow to start to move in. Now, if you look at the max temperatures, you can see today temperatures maxing around the 10 to 13 degree mark, but that's really where we've seen a bit of sunshine. Any showers and cloud, high single digits at best. As we head into tomorrow, we do see a bit of a frost overnight in a few places, and into Thursday afternoon, we could see temperatures again getting towards the 12 to 14 degree mark. Again, dry conditions around, that's aiding those temperatures bumping up by a degree or two. Now, as we head into Friday, again, temperatures overnight not dropping too low with some thicker cloud around, and into the afternoon could again maybe just about reach 13 or 14. So again, a slight improvement, but nothing crazy. And then into Saturday, look at that, really quite cold in the north and the west as the high pressure topples in within the cold air, for it does replace it. And by Saturday afternoon, the highest temperatures could be across parts of the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, 14 or 15 degrees. However, for parts of England, especially eastern England, 8 to 11 degrees, and that's because that easterly flow is starting to push in. And you see into Sunday, pretty chilly, especially across the southwest, which is where we've still got the cold air mass, but we've got higher pressure allowing clear skies. But look, by Sunday afternoon, best temperatures across the Republic of Ireland, where those warmer upper air temperatures have toppled in, higher pressures in control. But look along the east coast, 7 to 9 degrees, really cold as that easterly flow starts coming in, and it will get even colder as we head into Monday once the proper cold air mass starts to drift in. So yes, you can see slight improvements perhaps as we head through Friday to Sunday, looking pretty dry, but it's going to turn temporarily milder in the west, for it's going to turn much colder for all as we head into the following week. Now we can see this on the latest GFS on sort of the macro scale. If we do go back to the start of this run, again you can see northerly winds and at the moment the high pressure topples in, bringing slightly better conditions, dry conditions generally. The high pressure looks like it's over the top of us through Saturday, but then it slips back out to the west and we see this easterly flow returning. Now you can see the only really lower pressure in the far southeast corner, that's where we're likely to see showers and thicker cloud and the strongest winds, but even further northwards we do see the wind coming in off the North Sea, so it will be chillier. Now that dominates all the way to next week. Well, actually, by the middle to end of the week, we can open the floodgates to further northeasterly winds, staying very cold all the way to the final days of April, with low pressure systems forming over the top of us before eventually, as we head into early May, we do see low pressure and westerly winds return. But of course, we're likely giving up the dry conditions and the colder conditions for milder but wet and windy conditions. You can see here the jet stream coming straight back into us, this low pressure system forming along this little kink in the jet stream, and that could develop quite a severe system in the following days. Now, if you go back to the near future and have a look at the upper air temperatures, you can see it's chilly at the moment. Slightly milder air masses do topple over the top of us, but then cold easterly winds return early next week, dominate for a few days before eventually the air mass runs out, and then we see a further northeasterly wind into the end of the week, and it stays chilly all the way to the final days of April, before eventually into May it starts to turn milder. Of course, look to our north. There's not that much cold air left. So eventually the cold air will run out and it does become almost impossible to see anything too cold. But really, the models and the weather's keeping it pretty late this year to see our last sort of cold conditions where, you really are thinking about putting a coat on, maybe even a hat and gloves if you're out all day. Hopefully things are better into early May, but for the time being, remaining really chilly indeed. Now, if you compare to the GM, again, northerly wind in at the moment, high pressure topples, that easterly wind comes back early next week. Not quite as strong, I must say, with the greens more across Europe. We do see that cold air mass drift in, but really mostly only for England and Wales, for eventually we see fresher air masses as a low pressure system drops in from the north, keeping us below average again if we look at the temperature deviation. Blues, so still below average, still chilly, and still turning a little bit more unsettled, but not quite as direct and as cold as the GFS, I must say. Compared to the ECMWF, again, pretty similar, high pressure toppling in, that easterly wind arriving and staying with that easterly flow all the way into the final days of April. And again, chilly air masses coming in from the northeast. Of course, we're going to run out of these air masses, run out of that cold to our northeast, but we keep seeing bouts of it on this ECMWF run all the way into the final days of April. And we can see this well emphasised on the latest ensembles. Slight spike this weekend where we're just going to touch above average for a couple of hours. And then we drop well below again, about 6 to 8 degrees below for much of next week. And it remains really chilly into the final days of April, where we do trend back towards average and precipitation increases. So perhaps signs of, yes, milder conditions, but westerly winds, so up knocking the Atlantic. But yeah, for the time being, remaining really chilly, dry, fortunately, with that though. And if we look at the 2 meter temperatures, really struggling, 10 to 12 degrees at best next week, for eventually rising in the longer term. But yeah, pretty exceptional to see end of April heading into early May and not a single ensemble member has a high of 20 degrees and above, and only really a few have 15 degrees and above, and those are all in the final days of April and early May where we have uncertainty. Yeah, so pretty exceptionally cold pattern we're seeing here. Not in terms of the absolute temperatures, it is well below average, it's not like 10 to 12 degrees below average, but it's really just the persistency. Really chilly indeed, and I'll be intrigued to see what the CET comes out at the end of this month. Because of course, the start of April was above average, as most of this year has been, but this final 2 to 3 weeks is going to be below average, and it is going to drag that down quite significantly. So I'll be interested to see how far below average we are. We haven't had a month more than a degree below average in years. So this could be the first month if we see this pattern persist, especially next week. And of course, the final days of April could be the difference. If suddenly we see a bit of a milder westerly wind come in with 17, 18 degrees, then of course it will bring up that average, that CET. But if we see it continue into early May, then yeah, April could turn out to be a really chilly month indeed. And finally, if we compare to the ECMWF, again, broadly very similar. Below average for much of the next couple of weeks. The -5 isotherm there, pretty dominant from the majority of ensemble members. Precipitation picking up, so really a carbon copy of the GFS, where for much of next week we are 6 to 8 degrees below average. So yeah, really chilly indeed. So if you have got any plans next week, fortunately it is going to be dry. There will be a few showers around, but most areas are going to be relatively dry. Temperatures actually probably going to be highest the further northwards and westwards you go, but especially if you're in England and Wales, even and towards eastern and southern coasts, it is going to be chilly out there. The absolute temperatures looking likely to be 5, 6 degrees below average, and the feel-like temperatures could be more like 10 degrees below average given the wind direction. So yeah, might want to wrap up warm if you have got any outdoor plans next week. Fingers crossed though, things will be on the up into early May, and of course hoping for those signals in the next week or two. I'll keep you updated with everything going on. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.